The rain was relentless, pounding against the windshield as Mark navigated the winding, desolate road. He had been driving for hours, his eyes weary from the constant onslaught of rain and darkness. The GPS had led him down a forgotten stretch of highway, far from any town or city, and the fuel gauge was dangerously close to empty. Just as he was about to resign himself to sleeping in the car, a sign emerged from the mist, the Hollow Brook Inn, vacancy. The letters glowed faintly, almost as if the sign itself were struggling to exist in the murky night. Mark hesitated, but the prospect of a warm bed was too tempting. He turned off the road and followed the narrow, tree-lined drive to the hotel. As the car's headlights swept over the building, he saw it was an old, sprawling mansion, its wooden exterior worn and weather-beaten. Despite its size, the place seemed eerily quiet, as if it hadn't seen a visitor in years. The lobby was dimly lit, with dusty chandeliers casting long shadows across the faded wallpaper. A bell sat on the reception desk, tarnished and silent. Mark rang it once, the sound echoing unnervingly in the emptiness. Moments later, an elderly man appeared, moving slowly, as if the very act of living had become a burden. "Welcome to the Hollow Brook Inn," the man said in a voice that was barely more than a whisper. "We don't get many visitors these days." Mark gave a polite smile, too tired to question the man's strange demeanor. After checking in, he was handed an old-fashioned key and directed to his room on the third floor. The stairs creaked under his weight as he ascended, and the air grew colder the higher he climbed. When he reached his room, Mark found it to be oddly immaculate, with a bed that looked like it had been made yesterday. Yet, there was something off, an unsettling feeling that crawled under his skin. He dismissed it as exhaustion and quickly changed into his pajamas, collapsing onto the bed. Sleep came fast, but it wasn't peaceful. Mark dreamed of whispers. At first, they were faint, indistinct murmurs, but as the night wore on, they grew louder, more insistent. He saw flashes of images, a woman in a tattered dress, her eyes hollow, staring at him from a distance. Then there were the faces, dozens of them, gaunt and pale, all fixated on him as if waiting for something. Mark jolted awake, drenched in sweat. The room was dark, the only light coming from the thin sliver of moonlight that managed to creep through the heavy curtains. The whispers were still there, but they weren't just in his head anymore. They were real, coming from the hallway outside his room. He hesitated, fear prickling at the back of his neck, but he had to know. Slowly, he got out of bed and opened the door. The hallway was empty, but the whispers persisted, leading him further down the corridor. They grew louder, clearer, words becoming recognizable: "Join us, help us, free us." The whispers led him to the end of the hallway, where a single door stood ajar. Mark pushed it open, revealing a staircase leading downward, into the bowels of the hotel. He knew he shouldn't go down there, that this was the moment where any rational person would turn back. But he couldn't. Something was pulling him, an invisible force driving him forward. The stairs led to a large, cavernous room beneath the hotel. The walls were lined with old, crumbling brick, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. In the center of the room was a massive, stone well, its opening wide and gaping like the mouth of some ancient beast. The whispers were louder now, emanating from the well, swirling around him in a cacophony of voices. Mark approached the well, his heart pounding in his chest. As he peered into the darkness below, the whispers abruptly stopped, leaving a void of silence so profound that it felt deafening. Then, from the depths of the well, something moved. A hand, pale and skeletal, reached out from the darkness, grasping at the edge of the well. Mark stumbled back, but it was too late. More hands emerged, clawing their way up, followed by the figures to whom they belonged. They were the people from his dreams, gaunt, hollow-eyed, and covered in dirt, their faces twisted in expressions of eternal torment. They surrounded him, their cold hands gripping his arms, his legs, pulling him toward the well. Mark tried to scream, but the sound died in his throat. He was being dragged, inch by inch, closer to the abyss. In one final, desperate act, Mark yanked free from their grasp, falling backward onto the cold stone floor. As he scrambled to his feet, he noticed something horrifying, a massive, ornate mirror mounted on the wall behind the well. In its reflection, Mark didn't see himself. He saw them, the faces of the damned souls, twisted in agony, their mouths open in silent screams. And then he saw it. The final, darkest twist. In the reflection, standing among them, was the old man from the reception desk, but his face was no longer weary or frail. It was malevolent, eyes glowing with an unnatural light, his mouth curled into a smile that chilled Mark to the bone. The man spoke, but his voice came from all around, echoing through the chamber. "You're not the first, and you won't be the last. This hotel needs its guests, after all." Mark's blood turned to ice as the realization struck him. This place, this cursed hotel, was a trap, feeding off the souls of those unfortunate enough to stumble upon it. And now, it was his turn. The reflection in the mirror shifted, showing Mark's own face now, pale and lifeless, trapped among the others. He felt his body grow cold, his strength leaving him as the room darkened. The last thing he saw before everything went black was the old man's smile, growing wider, as he welcomed another soul to the Hollow Brook Inn. And then, silence.